There we go. Wait for Instagram here. There we go. We are live, gentlemen. It's the closing table. January 30th, last one of the month. And stoked to be here. We got a very cool guest today. We got Blake Murphey. He's a longtime friend of mine who is on the real estate game, but more of the realtor side, I should say. We have a lot of investors, wholesalers, flippers, investors on here, but this is our first time having an actual realtor, someone on the front lines dealing with the retail side. And as always, I'm Drew from Lead House 365, and this is my tag team partner Craig over here.
What's up, family?
And what's up, Blake? Thanks for being here.
How you guys doing? Thank you for having me.
Good, man.
Tell us a little bit about your real estate journey, I guess, to get started, and how that got going. And we'll see if people jump in and ask some questions as we go in here.
Okay. I've been licensed since 2020. I was kind of telling you that right before I jumped on here, but I actually started in 2016 on the marketing side. So for about 4 or 5 years, kind of learned the back end a little bit, and then decided, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot myself. And I think during COVID, I just decided to get licensed, and that was pretty much it. And it's been pretty good ever since. So it's been enjoying that.
That's awesome. What market are you? What market are you in?
So I'm in Central Florida. So anywhere within like Kissimmee to DeLand-ish. I will go out sometimes depending on the listing or the client. But you know, I've sold in St. Augustine. I've sold in Vero Beach, and I think I've got one in Tampa coming up.
Cool.
But most of Central Florida, yeah.
So when you got started with the marketing side of it, was it more? Did you work for another realtor or work for a realty company or something like that? Or
no, so I started with Remax, and they're all individually owned, so not corporate or anything. And that was just really, they were trying to market to agents to try to get them to join the brokerage. So it was kind of that side, like what would be a reason an agent would want to work here? What could we do to support them? And, you know, that was fun. That was kind of just, you know, when I started, there was really it was just a job. But I really started to kind of learn it and love it. And a couple, maybe 2 years after that, I started helping another agent with Facebook and Instagram graphics and just kind of taking over what she was already doing. And she was great. She sells, I think at the time, like 45 to 50 homes a year in the like between 800 and 2 million price range, like roughly in between that. In my first year with her, we actually doubled what she was doing. We got her to 75 that year, then like 80 the year after. And that was kind of how I switched into the agent side. And I was like, I'm just going to do this for myself. And then I got licensed.
And I think that's firsthand. You can see like how important marketing is. I think that probably, especially in that industry, your side of things, like for the investors and wholesalers, flippers, like marketing is like 100% like the job to some extent. But realtors, I know a ton of them who just are like 100% referral based, and maybe they put their name on a park bench, or they just build a network, or they work for a company like Remax, maybe sends them leads, right? But like when you can really take control over that marketing yourself and go get like an acquisition channel for leads, whether it be digital marketing or something, you know, in the 21st century, because this shows firsthand what can happen for that realtor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doubling their amount of houses, doubling their volume, pretty insane. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Marketing is everything in real estate. And again, you know, I'm not on the wholesaling side, but I can imagine, you know, with the number of touches you have to be able to acquire those leads, you know, it's going to be important.
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I mean, you're going through sellers who still have to sell, right? But they may be in a little better off than the ones who, you know, come to us or our clients, right? Maybe it's not as distressed. Maybe they aren't going through the same struggles, but they still, at the end of the day, they have to get their home sold, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
kind of the same. Hey, we ask everybody this. Tell us about your first deal. Tell us how your first listing.
First deal.
Yeah.
Okay. So first deal, I remember when I got licensed, I thought it was gonna be a whole lot easier than it was. And I started doing open houses and calling family members and, talking to people down the street, whatever I could think of. And I just felt like I kept like spinning wheels and nothing was happening. And
Yeah.
I watched something, I forget what it was. It was something on YouTube, and it, it was basically, I didn't want to cold call. That's not my thing.
Mhm.
But I was like, I'm just gonna try to text. So I started texting for sale by owners, and I think it was my seventh text. I got a lead, and I
Mhm.
went to this house, and it was, it wasn't. I think at the time it was like 345,000. So nothing crazy. Um, but I remember just being like so stoked. Like I finally got somebody to reach back out to me and went, and there was multiple agents, for sale by owners, you're getting,
Yeah.
it's a ton of people are reaching out to them. And I think I just clicked with them. We had a great conversation. They were listing a little bit higher than it should have been. So I think at the time it probably should have gone like closer to 310, 315, something like that. And I was like, you know what? Part of this is like I was so early, I didn't really fully grasp like the difference in listing price and how close you need to be, and why listing at the wrong price can, really destroy your deal. So I was like, yeah, let's go at 345. I told her I was like, probably a month, I'd imagine. We'll get it under contract. And if you remember, like right after COVID and the rates started dropping to like
Mhm.
2.8, I don't even think it was 2.8. It was like around three. Um, Prices started jumping, and so I ended up getting that under contract pretty quickly, just because people started freaking out. They wanted to, get that house quickly before the prices rose too high. So we sold that one. At the time, it's like you get the inspection report back, and until you've started closing deals, you don't realize like how scary those can be as well. So I'm sure, if you're a first time home buyer, or even, an investor, if you're a newer investor, there's a lot that can go down. But I remember thinking like, oh, the deal's dead. Like, I think it was just we had to replace the outside electrical box, and there's a couple other things. But I went to my broker. We talked about it. He talked me through it. Went to the other agent, kind of negotiated back and forth, and got it closed in I think 45 days total from when we listed. So I think I was pretty lucky. I think there's a lot of people, especially at first, it's really tough to close some of these deals, and that one was pretty good though. I was stoked.
That's
Hell
awesome.
yeah. First deal. Sounds like, it went well.
Yeah, yeah.
Learning experience, and yeah, top of the
Hmm.
market, dude. COVID. Yeah. People, yeah, the rates
Definitely got lucky with
dropped.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
That's awesome.
with those for sale by owners, they a lot of them. There's just a lot of unrealistic ideas. Everybody, when they own a house, thinks it's worth more than it is, just because they've been there and they put the work into it. And
Hmm.
so it was we got lucky with that one.
Yeah. Also, for sale by owner people, a lot of times the reason why it's for sale by owner is because they're too cheap to hire a realtor.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So it takes someone
Yeah,
like you to have that conversation with them, like, hey, it's going to be sitting around because, one, you're not a realtor, you don't know what I do or what I know, you don't
yeah.
have the network. And also, I know they don't want to pay the realtor commissions, but again, I mean, they still have to sell.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because most of the time too, if you look statistically, and I don't know what the exact statistic is. I'm sure I can pull it up here in a second, but I think it's somewhere like 15 or 20% less it ends up selling for, and the commission you maybe would save like, you know, 2,000-3,000 depending on the price range. And you know, it's insane when you actually run the numbers that they end up losing so much more just by, now it's not everyone, obviously, if they know how to market properly and they know, you know, what they need to get prepared to list, you know, whether it's like their roofs replaced or HVAC and, you know, electrical stuff like that. But most of the time they end up selling significantly less than if it had been listed.
Yeah.
But it all depends, obviously. But.
Yeah, and then they're kind of trying to negotiate a deal themselves. You know, they're gonna rarely win unless, you know, depending on who they are. But like winning in that against another realtor or an investor potentially or something like that. This is a game that you need to be good at if you're going to try to do it yourself.
No, absolutely. And I mean, a lot of times too, you know, agents will target that. Like, hey, I think I can get us a deal if we go to this, you know, to this for sale by owner. And the home seller typically doesn't really know like the contract and the outs, and you may, you know, give them an offer that seems like something they want, knowing that, hey, this isn't going to appraise, so we're going to likely get 10,000-15,000 off this price. Or, you know, I know that my buyer is able to get out with the financing clause, you know, within 30 days because we didn't write a, you know, 10-day financing clause in there. Or you know, even just the negotiating side up front, like there's a lot of things that they miss out on, I think, you know, when they're not represented properly.
Yeah. So what do you do currently to get when you do real estate deals? What are you doing currently to generate leads for yourself, for you know, buyers and sellers?
So we're in year 6 now, so I would say thankfully I'm hitting the referral based side where I don't have to do a ton. I still do a lot of media and marketing. So I kind of like run 2 businesses where I'll do listing photos for other agents, like high-end listing photos, high-end real estate videos. So, you know, I do probably like 3 to 5 million a year, like nothing too crazy on the real estate side. And then I split that with the media marketing side. So right now I'm pretty comfortable. But video is usually like my go-to. Facebook, Instagram, that type of thing. Like if I'm gonna list something, I'll want to do like a community video, or we'll do, you know, what type of foods nearby, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure, makes sense. I think that's one thing is like being up with the times of marketing anything, whether you're trying to sell a house or you're trying to sell anything, like how that looks and appears, and how can you get in front of people? How can you get in front of the masses? Like just having it listed on the MLS really is like, sure, there's people going to be looking at it, and you want that listing to look great and be appealing. At the end of the day, if you're looking to get it sold faster, going and marketing directly to buyers, you know, on Facebook, Instagram, you know, YouTube ads, that's going to be the fastest way to get it done. You may have to invest a little bit of marketing money into it, but you know, at that time, sometimes your seller or the buyer, like the timeline might be the thing that's most important to them, is wanting to get this done in 30 days. So that's where you got to invest that. Do you have any real estate horror stories? Any deals you've been
horror stories? Yeah,
let's hear them.
I mean, there's arguably could be a horror story with almost every deal. You know, it's just the degree of how crazy it gets.
Memorable one.
Let's see.
What was the craziest
one? Memorable. I was thinking of how I can relate this to flipping. I had one where we had I met this seller, and he had been working with an agent that they kind of had a system down where, you know, he'd find the deals, they'd flip it, and they'd go relist it. And I was talking to him, and I think he was showing me his timeline, and it was taking like 2 or 3 months, sometimes 6 months to get these sold. And I was like, that's, you know, in this market, and this was in like, you know, 2022-ish, 2023. So like it shouldn't have taken that long. you know, he'd been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years before that. But we ended up listing, like I finally convinced him, like, let's go with a cutting edge, like, marketing approach. Like we're going to pull out all the stops for this one, video, photo, QR codes, like all the stuff at the time. And I remember my open house had a line, which that was one that was like real. I was really stoked about that. And I had somebody that was a cash buyer ready to put either full price or above asking. We got everything written up. We started going through the house, and there was a lot that was not permitted. And what he had done is, you know, he had these guys that he had built up over the years. He had, you know, pretty much a Rolodex of contractors that he'd call and bring in there. And they were started asking me for the permits, like, okay, you know, we're ready. They want to do their due diligence, obviously. You know, when they're representing their buyer, that's a huge purchase. And you know, even though it looks great and the inspection was great, when certain things aren't permitted like that, you know, that can it'll just scare people off. Like, even if it was done properly and it was awesome, but we ended up losing that deal because that fell through. The one directly after the buyer's father came to the inspection, I'm sure, you know, that's a meme you see, and it happens all the time.
The dad?
Same thing. The buyer's dad. Yeah. The buyer's dad.
Yeah.
It was their first time home buyer. They were younger. And, you know, he walks through, he's seeing certain things that you see why it wasn't permanent. You know, it's like the work was done properly, but it's like, you know, I think they converted like an outdoor. I don't want to say it was a shed. It was just like an open area outside the patio. We turned to a room, just things like that. And that one ended up falling through. So he had to spend even more we had to permit a couple of those, and that took, you know, 30 days. I think even maybe a little bit longer. But long story short, like it ended up being 2.5 months, and he spent more, and we had to drop. I think we sold it for 15,000 under list, and so we would have sold it that first day. I think 10,000 above list, so that's what 25,000 that he lost by not permitting it.
Yep.
So stuff like that, I'd say that's kind of a horror story on the seller side. You know, I've had crazy clients and stuff like that on, you know, not mine, but like on the other side. But yeah, not money related. That's probably the first one I can think of.
Can't be cutting corners when it comes to permits, man. You got to get it done. You know,
you see it happen.
It always comes back to bite you in the ass, especially when you're represented, and then especially when you're getting financing. You know, because hey, you could not even notice it being the buyer, right? But your lender is going to be like, hey, did they pull permits for that work they did? You know, so and it'll just blow the deal up.
Yeah, absolutely. You see it a lot though with you know, not all flips, but you can tell when you walk into a house if it's recently been flipped, and you know, it's not like a red flag right away, but you definitely start to look at things a little bit more even before you potentially even write a contract up.
Yeah, especially your dad too, or their dad.
Yeah,
you know, they're gonna be they have their own inspection. You know, where you know, because
that's any house that they're gonna find something. If it's like a nightmare, if you know the buyer's parents are coming, that's not good.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Parent teacher conferences.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's funny. So, tell us about your team, man. Like, who do you have on?
No team, just me.
It's just you.
Just me. Yeah, I do it all.
Wow.
Marketing. Yeah.
3 to 5 million a year, and it's just you.
Yeah,
that's insane, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations, bro.
I mean, awesome. I think if I had a team, it'd definitely be a lot more. You know, just the prospecting side. You know, that's a full-time job, and
true.
That's why I'm thankful to be mostly referral based, because I can still post and, you know, post my media and post, you know, videos here and there and Instagram stories, all that, and that's pretty much where I'll get 80% of my clientele from are people I already know or have worked with or their family members. But yeah, I mean, if I had somebody running that side the whole time, and I can just focus on the real estate side, then yeah, I'm sure it'd probably be even more.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome, man.
And you try to focus on like the more luxury, like higher ticket side of real estate. Is there a reason why that was attractive to you, or just kind of fell into it, or how did that all come to be?
I mean, I don't necessarily say that I focus on that. I think that it's just the people that I have worked with. I'll have a lot of like friends' parents, and that'll just be the price range they're in.
Yeah.
And then from the media side, I can make those homes look a lot better. And so I'll just advertise those a little bit more. And it ended up, and it ends up working in my favor. I think one of them I remember this one actually specifically was from someone I went to high school with. She was in the middle of a deal and she was just asking me for advice, and she had not listed her property yet. So she was buying a new property, and I'm in Winter Park. I don't know where this is based, but I'm in Winter Park, Florida, and this is Baldwin Park. So it was like directly next to me. And I was like, I'm going to just go create like a video for her house, because I knew she hadn't listed yet. And the buyer's agent was assuming that they were going to go through, her, because they were already working together. And it ended up going viral, not fully viral, but it got shared around like the Baldwin Facebook pages from like the residents. And, the seller, she ended up saying that like they were going to go with me just because of that video. I don't know, it was a really unique situation that came just from creating that video content. And so I would say, it's not just what I'm targeting, it's easier to market, I think, to be honest with you. Yeah.
I think also, like, if you have that skill set that you do with the marketing video, like those higher price houses are harder to sell. It requires a different player. It's not that the price range is accessible to 90% of people. So you have to do something that attracts that top 10%. And maybe those people aren't even in the housing market, but they see a video for a house that's like, oh my God, this would be my dream home and I can afford it because I'm that person. You have to be able to get that piece of content that sells that house in front of them to attract that. Because I know that like when a professional athlete, when someone on the Orlando Magic is going to sell their house because they're getting traded to teams, that house could be on the market for multiple years, just because to find a buyer who can afford it, who's at the right time willing to buy it, can be really hard, because what percentage of people in the world actually can that want to live in Orlando, Florida, that can pick any house probably in the state of Florida and afford it, but that's what they choose, So so that skill set obviously leans yourself towards that, and I'm sure the commission on a house that's worth a lot more money for the same amount of work is obviously lucrative too. So
I actually shot photos and video for Mario Hezonja from the Magic when he was this was not for my listing, it was for another agent client of mine, but same thing. You obviously need that high-end production, and we did a pretty detailed video, and it sat for a little bit because it wasn't priced properly. That's a marketing piece on its own, is where you want to put it out at. But ended up, some doctor ended up buying it.
Probably just was to be an NBA player's house,
Yeah. Actually, I think Courtney Lee. You remember Courtney Lee? He custom built that one. Yeah. So it was Courtney Lee's house. He sold it to Mario, and then now some doctors got it.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's wild. Have you? So you've never really dealt with like worked with any wholesalers directly? What about any like flippers or just like real estate investors?
No, no wholesalers. I've dealt with I've dealt with the phone calls from wholesalers. I've dealt with emails from wholesalers. And I'm not too familiar with how that works when they're represented from an agent. I know most of the time I've got emails that's significantly lower than where we want to be. And that may just be the range that I'm in. It may work, with other listed homes. When I first got licensed, I did, I was trying to consume like everything about real estate. I wanted to be successful, so I was watching pretty much anything I could. So I did see, a lot of stuff on Instagram and TikTok on how to be successful with that. So that's really my only experience, like on that side. Investors, I've had a couple of those, like I told you, the flips, where you're marketing what they've done and getting it sold. So from that side, but yeah, I mean, I don't typically work with investors per se. I had one. We just purchased an Airbnb in, I think it was May. Stuff like that, but yeah, not like, I mean, there's a lot of agents that have like, that's their clientele. They have a list of investors and that's all they do is list their, their flips or stuff like that. But
yeah. We work with a lot of guys who, some of them may just be cash buyers and they're just flip contracts. And really what, we're focused on finding we talk about like the condition of the property when you're trying to sell a house, but we try to focus on the condition of the seller. Like how did they acquire the house, or like what is going through in their life. Someone like you who's like a parent of a friend, who's looking to maybe downsize their house or move into a nicer house that's smaller, or wants to relocate to a different area of town, or for whatever reason it is in their life that they want to move, is a completely different persona than our type of clients who they deal with. They deal with people who maybe a loved one, their husband or wife just lost their main source of income and they are going to face foreclosure. So if they don't sell this asset for whatever equity they have, they could potentially lose it because they can't afford the payments, and maybe they can't afford the repairs that are needed to be able to work with someone like you. If they came to you, you'd be like, if the amount of repairs would be needed for me to even be able to put this house in the MLS, and they can't afford that, and their timeline is shortened to where they have investor, a cash buyer. So it could be that, or maybe they inherited a house, and let's say someone's grandmother passed away and they live in Ohio and the house is in Orlando, Florida, and the grandmother was a hoarder and they just inherited this. Just like, hey, someone just take this off my hands. I don't want to have to go clean it out, fix it up, list it, and then wait how long it is on the market to then potentially the full price. They'll just be willing to take 30% of what the actual home value is to an investor or a flipper or someone who's just doing cash offer stuff. But a lot of our guys also have real estate license too, because when it comes to maximizing your advertising dollars, when these guys are spending potentially a few $1,000s a month, and that could be across hiring cold callers, it could be across doing direct mail campaigns, it could be doing bench advertising, billboard advertising, TV, radio advertising. It could be running digital ads. Like we spend probably some of our clients spend $15,000 a month just on Facebook ads to generate leads for properties. When it comes to that, they want to maximize every single dollar. So if they get someone who is like, yeah, I'm really motivated to sell my house, but I will not take less than 20%, 10% under what I believe the market value is. Okay, well then let me list this house for you, and I can work with you on the realtor side. And no matter what, that lead is still turning into money, versus if you're just focusing on the cash offer side, right? Or then you really have to be able to find someone who's willing to be in such distress, they'll take 30% of the value. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, there's always I always tell, when I'm talking to a potential seller, there's always a path. And maybe you want to maximize it, and we want to go out and do all do the staging, all the photography, video, all that. But there are those clients where they need to get it sold quickly, and they would prefer to do it off market, and they may have bought the house for $30,000 back in 1980, and they just need to get out, and they don't care if they're able to get rid of it. And you know, no hassle. It makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
Just depends obviously on the, you know, on the type of person and what their needs are.
What's been the biggest change in real estate since you first started, you know, 10 years ago to now, or I guess maybe since you got your license to now, that you.
So yeah, when I first started, I think I wasn't really paying attention to what the market was doing. I had different goals at the time. 2020, obviously, that was just a crazy year for everyone. So I didn't really know. I had nothing to base it off of. You know, I had just got licensed. This is what I know. I remember specifically my broker telling me at the time, like, "Hey, we really need to be pushing out how great this rate is." You know, we were seeing rates of like 2.78, and I remember making a video talking about, like, you know, this is stuff you haven't seen in over 30, 40 years. But I didn't really get it. Like, had I really understood that, I would have probably called like every single person I know. Hey, you need to either refinance or let's see if we can get you qualified. And so that was like, you know, early 2021-ish to like really 2022. It just stayed kind of low and snowballing. And it was a hot market. I remember, you know, there was one of the buyers I was working with, we put an offer in and there was 50 offers. And we ended up winning that one. You know, I had to write a really creative contract, but, you know, 30, 40, 50 offers at a time was normal. In 2022, 2023, it kind of stopped. And really last year, 2020, well, I guess 2024, 2025 has been kind of, I don't want to say stagnant, but it's definitely taken a lot longer for houses to sell. It's kind of leveled off for sure. I just talked to my lender today, just before I jumped on, so I could, you know, see where we're at with rates today. And he said that after the I'll read exactly what he said. But the last, I guess there was a Fed meeting recently.
Yesterday.
Yeah. And he said it jumped a little bit with that one. And so it's with 1%, it's rates are hovering at like 6, or with a point. I mean, rates are hovering around like 6% right now.
Still kind of.
Well, we were getting down. I mean, we were like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we were seeing stuff at like 5.8, which is pretty good. You know, we were up at 8 in 2024. I think we were at like 8%. So
I think there's another thing about 2020 was the time I think everyone could go back and, you know, think about the opportunities you had, but it's so hard to realize the opportunities that are in front of you. But you had so many people who were like, you know, well, if we're going to be stuck at home 24/7, then we might as well live in a place. Let's buy a place that we want. You combine that with, depending on what industry you're in, there were some industries that kind of got ravaged by it. But if you were in some type of digital or e-commerce or medical field, you had, you know, some of the busiest times of just of certain industries booming. After that initial like plunge the stock market took when COVID dropped, then it just like was crazy and soared, and there was so many people doing really well in the market. You also had, you know, the government just giving out money to everyone. And if you were a business owner, they were just giving out like small business loans for like just signing your name, and they'll give you one with like pretty much no interest. So you had just a massive access to capital if you knew what you were doing. And the opportunity was there, and the government was literally just handing out money that so many people probably were like, this is the last bit of money we needed to maybe put a down payment on a house. And at that point,
absolutely.
The housing rate, actually housing was a lot more affordable then because there was less people moving, because at right when it first started because of it. So
what's interesting about that is, so that was the very beginning of like 2020 and 2021. But when it started getting into that 30, 40, 50 offer territory, people were picking their second, third, you know, sometimes fifth choices for housing. And what I'm noticing now is a lot of sellers from that time period are selling, and same with the people that moved down here. So we're, you know, obviously we're in Florida. You get a bunch of people that they weren't used to the heat down here. They weren't used to the insurance rates down here. There's a lot of factors that kind of led them to think this was like kind of the promised land of where they want to retire and where they just want to be, you know, now that they're working remote. But between those two, like, we're definitely seeing, like, I'd say it's more of a buyer's market here, then, you know, I've seen some articles that like Allentown, Pennsylvania, and you know, certain cities in Cleveland or Ohio, like not Cleveland itself, but other places like that, like those are becoming the hot sellers markets, or hot sellers markets, and down here you're more of a buyer's market.
Yeah.
So it's interesting for sure.
I think Florida, yeah, plus like insurance, you know, taxes, hurricanes. I know there's areas of like Tampa that they can't even get homes insured because it's just like it's too expensive, and they know it's only a matter of time before it gets hit by another storm.
Well, any of those homes that they're rebuilding, the homes they're rebuilding, like you've got to put them on stilts, and a lot of that stuff, like investors down there, because I have a friend who's a contractor, and he'll go out there and he'll kind of work and get those ready, and to them it's like they may not insure it. They're just going to take the risk because they're getting such a good deal, you know, once you flip it and potentially rent it out or sell it, you know, you're making your money back pretty quickly.
I know my grandmother lives in Key West, and like you can't like either you can get it insured or it'll cost more than most people's mortgage payments will just be the
absolutely.
Like, why would you pay for that when you know, at the end of the day, you pay that for a few years, and then God forbid something does happen, what's going to cost more, like the repairs or potentially whatever might happen from that, or what? And then even if you do have insurance, there's not even like, I know from the last hurricanes that came through, how many people had insurance and were left, hey, their houses flooded here in Orlando, and they couldn't do anything about it because they didn't have specific like flood insurance or this one specific policy that they needed to add on that they didn't know, that a lot of people I know got hit with. So Florida's a crazy, it's like, you know, I think everywhere has like the pros and cons. Like if you do in California, yeah, your taxes is going to be insane. There may be benefits you have, and you have to deal with like earthquakes or the brush fires, the wildfires and stuff. Like everywhere comes with the ups and downs. And Craig and I are from Maine, where, you know, house insurance is probably pretty affordable at the end of the day, but then the winter you're dealing with 6 months of just, you know, the worst miserable life you could possibly live. He was just up there for Christmas for a month, and I was like, I don't know how you did it, dude. It's brutal.
Hey, we're getting it down here next week, or this weekend actually.
I mean, the cold is one thing.
It's the wind, man. It's the wind.
And it's so dry, and everything is just like bright gray everywhere, and it's just like depressing. Like here it'll be cold, but like it's bright and sunny and beautiful, just cold. And there's the, you know, but like the sun is actually out. Like you won't see sun for weeks up there. It's miserable.
Well, at least you guys have a Super Bowl to enjoy. So
Craig's a Browns fan though, so he doesn't even get to enjoy that, but it's okay. I get to enjoy it.
Can't help you with that one.
Blake, in your opinion, man, because you're on the retail side, I know this is pretty common. Why do you think that there is such a high turnover rate of agents? You know, you think it's just the lack of knowledge, willpower,
lack of education? I think the barrier to entry to getting your license is too easy, and you're sold, you know, a ton of false dreams on, you know, how much money you can make in the industry, and how easy it'll be to get leads, and then when you do get those leads, like, you know, how easy it is to convert those and get them closed, and you know, you've got fees on top of that. Like I have to pay like somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 in just fees, and that doesn't include what I spend in marketing and other stuff. And by the time you finally get a deal sold, and the other thing is your agent split too. So it depends on, you know, where you end up as your brokerage. You know, when I first started, I had and this was a good split, but it was a 70-30 split with 5% on top of that going to corporate. So I remember thinking, you know, I saw my commission check. My first one was going to be like $7,500. And I was like, okay, this is pretty good. You know, this is the first one coming through. And by the time I got it back, I think it was 4,000 something, maybe even like 3,800, something where I was like kind of shocked. Like, okay, I knew it was going to be lower, but I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
And so I was able to, I just kind of pushed through. I kept my other job, marketing, and doing that. So I was able to stay in the industry and kind of like simultaneously work with the brokerage and be an agent. And I was able to renegotiate my split once I started kind of making a name for myself. But a lot of these other agents, they'll start out with like a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
So, they're at the open houses every weekend because their team requires them to do that. And then you do end up getting the lead because the team leader is the one paying for the leads, or they have the name. And, by the time they close the deal, they're getting maybe, $2,500, 3,000, which may seem like a lot, but when you're only getting commission, like it's 100% commission based industry, that's not a lot. So,
and it's not too different from the guys we work with. You may look to a lead that you get a $30,000 assignment fee on, and you're like, this is easy, hell yeah, and you go buy the watches and go live the life, and then 60 days later you haven't gotten a second deal, and all of a sudden it's not too much to show for that, and you don't know ever how much time might go between deals until you realize that it's about you, it's about how hard you work, and it's about your processes and what you set up, able to be to generate a lead, to nurture it and convert it, and understanding that like those one call lay down layups are more like unicorns. And if your first one is like that, then it's like honestly a disaster. It's not a blessing. You feel like it's at the time, but it's we see a lot of guys like you want to be beaten down and have it be hard, so you truly appreciate the ones that come easy.
For sure. Yeah, I think when I first started, my broker told me a story about how, when you're cold calling and you look at it like, okay, there's a jar of M&Ms and they're all like brown M&Ms, but he's like, there's one green M&M, and that might be, 100 calls that you have to make. You may get that one green one in the first like 5 or 10 that you pick, and then that next 80 M&Ms is going to be the brown one. And it's the same as cold calling. You may get a lead quickly right off the bat, and you still got to call 50, 60 people after that, and so you may get a no, but it's part of the game
too. We have guys, we generate leads for tons of people. We generate leads for hundreds of different types of people, realtors, investors, flippers, and we have guys that we could just send leads, and we'll send them 10. If the first one they get on the phone, if this person is actually interested, they'll get them under contract on the phone, have a contract signed on a phone call, never meeting them face to face, never seeing the house, just crunching numbers, looking at estimates, and saying, hey, this is what I can do for you, because they're just killer sales guys, and they listen to what the seller's going through, and they have empathy, and they relate, and they say, here's how I can help you. And the seller at that point wants to work with them. We have other guys who just see everything as dollar signs, and do the numbers work? Oh, the person wants full market value. All right, goodbye. Right? There's no sales skill involved. Like, you go into a car dealership, you're willing to just want to pay sticker price, right? Like that's what the salesperson is going to want, right? But like no one wants that. That doesn't mean if you're a car salesman, you just say, sorry, if you're not willing to pay the price on the sticker, you got to go. Like, good luck buying a car. But it's just that. It's like the who and the person themselves, and what their work ethic is, and how good their skill set is. And when you go in, you have to negotiate with maybe a buyer's agent or a seller's agent. Your skill that is whether that deal falls through or it comes through. And if someone wants you to sell them why they should hire you as a realtor, like that's a skill set in itself to sell to them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like equal, like the reason we see such a high turnover rate of investor clients is probably the same reason why, the residential.
Hey, hold on. Can you hold on one second?
Yeah. I was saying it's kind of the same. A lot of realtors probably see the shiny object syndrome, right? To where they are expecting to make X amount of dollars in a short amount of time, because that's what they're used to seeing, on social media, or That's what they want to believe, but it's all about the person. When you're 100% commission dedicated, the only way you're going to eat is if you go out there and make it happen. It truly, it brings out people's colors, right? And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people they can't do it. It's because they're used to collecting a check 9 to 5, and they try to make this leap into something else, like being an agent or an investor on commission only, and it's completely different than what they're used to.
When most people are totally comfortable in that 9 to 5 where they only make you work just hard enough not to get fired, right? Yeah. Whatever that level is, you just find that level and you just sit there for the rest of your life, right? And then the people who do go make that leap, it's sink or swim. So yeah, that turnover rate for realtors, it's no different than what we see. Like how many guys we worked with last year, we hit them up to see if they need some help. We could help them out, and they're like, "Oh no, I'm out of the game. I'm back door dashing," or
I'd imagine that side is tougher because we at least have, there are brokerages that will provide leads to you, or will provide, they'll already have the contract already set up for you. But to be able to just wholesale and just cold call and convert those, I think would be, again, it's not my wheelhouse at all, but I think it'd be tougher.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we make it easy for them. We source from the lead. We source from the lead. Yeah. It's all inbound. It all has motivation. It's always off market. All they have to do is close. That's one thing, is like that fine line that me and Andrew, we talk about almost every week on our weekly meetings, is like where we're at. Hey, we got you the leads. If you guys can't turn it into money, then that's you.
I mean, that's the hardest. Getting the lead is by far the hardest part. By far. Mm-hmm. Once you have them, it's so much easier, because it's all conversations and relationship based. But getting that initial lead, I mean, that's easily the toughest part on my end as well.
Yeah. And you're not also really focused as what our guys are, is like what the house is going to be sold for, right? Our guys, a lot of them have to buy a house for a certain percentage off. And that is always going to be much, much larger than the person wants or is expecting. How do you deliver that information to them? How do you sell them on that vision still while you're giving them very bad news, would be the nicest way to say it. Versus a realtor, it's like you can work. It's easier to exist in a realm of reality from the realtor world with the leads. Every single lead, for the most part, depending on what they're going through, most of the time, I don't know what percentage of the time, Craig, do you think people actually understand what the offer is about to be when you give it to them?
I mean, I don't know, man. Probably less than 30. It's kind of like first they need
70%. People are going to be like, "That's really low. Holy shit!"
70%. You're talking about the formula. I don't know.
I'm saying like when you're delivering someone their cash offer, right? As an investor, a real estate wholesaler, or maybe a flipper, you have to deliver them this information of what you're willing to pay for it. Yeah. And it's never going to go over well. And that is a skill set within itself. With a realtor, it's like you're probably within some range of what they think they can get for the house. Hey, here's the options. If we do this, this, and this, we might be able to get to this. If you leave it the way it is now, it's going to be this. Whereas as cash buyers, like it's always going to be like 30 cents on the dollar.
Well, yeah, as a wholesaler or a cash buyer, they need to buy it to make money, whereas Blake's primary customer is buying it to live in it, right? Yeah. So the person we're, helping get leads for, they're going to buy this and contract it and sell it to somebody else. Both of them are going to make money and then sell it on the market. So what that seller might perceive as being a low offer is like, well, hey, you saw our ad, you went through our funnel, you're going through this situation. You can't possibly think we're going to pay you retail. If you are, have you ever met a homestead seller running ads to sell their own personal house? Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of education involved, but some people
is what our job.
Yeah. But even on my side, there's the price, but I think a lot of people aren't familiar with the fees associated with selling either. So there is a lot of similarities, but the wholesale is going to be significantly less, but again, it's those, those people that need to sell right away. And it absolutely makes sense.
And by the time they get to us, it's one or two things. They've already talked to a realtor and they've realized that the timeline and the fees are something, and pay attention to what they might need to do to sell the house isn't the path they want to go. So now they're coming to us, or they come to us and we educate them that, hey, go talk to a realtor. Let us know if we can help recommend you one. But they're right now the only, like, we can't help you. Maybe they can. And then guess what? Maybe that realtor gives them the same information and they decide that the cash off route is better to go. But we also tell a lot of our clients, because we do this ourselves, Craig, it's more on Craig's wheelhouse that I help generate the leads. But, there's so many other ways other than just being a traditional realtor and doing traditional cash offers. You get it done. Novations are becoming really popular in our world. And also some like buying and holding properties. If you're a true investor, and that's what you call yourself, you should be willing to buy and hold some of these properties yourself and understand that you can still cash flow a house for, $500 a month, buying it off someone who just really needs help, really needs his house sold. And you can, as long as you can find a way to afford the down payment on that house, or get creative and put it on a credit card or something, then you can hold on to that property and cash flow it and put a tenant in it. And now you're starting to build a portfolio of properties yourself. The leads we generate could work for realtors, could work for people building their own rental portfolios, could work for people who are doing cash offers at deals. It's just like, if you only are focused on one of these exit strategies, it's going to be really hard. If you're not willing to go get your real estate license, if you're willing to go do that, then your life's going to be even easier, because every single lead is still an opportunity. Because the one thing with us is like these people need to sell their house. They filled out a long form. They've given their life story. They've spilled their guts about like what they're going through. And so they need to do it, whether it's going to be you or somebody else or a realtor, or they're going to let it go to foreclosure, right? Someone needs to help them through that situation. So it's really just being able to figure out what's the best strategy for that, that seller, and how to get the deal done and convince them that, this is the way that this is the way it's going to be. Do they believe you that like the information you're giving them is valid? And sometimes it takes them talking to 10 different people and they come back to you and they say, you were the first person who gave me all this information. I talked to 10 other people. They all said the same thing, but since you were the first one, you were clearly honestful and truthful. So I want to work with you. So, yeah. Craig, is there any other questions you had teed up? I know you had a few things you wanted to touch on. I didn't skip over anything. We're coming to the end.
Novations, Blake. I'm sure at this point you've heard of what novations are. Have you run into a situation where you have a seller who maybe thought they had a buyer, but lo and behold, they put that property on the market without them knowing it?
No, I have not had that situation. Well, so if you want to, give me a quick background on that.
You will run into it. I don't know when, but you will run into it. So a novation is pretty much just like getting a decent discount, not like a cash offer, but close to a cash offer price. But also giving the seller a little more money, and for them allowing you to list it on the market, right? You know about these flat fee list services that are going around. Yeah. You can just pay some broker in California who's got access to every MLS in the country $100, and they'll just throw it up on the market. And then like the investor, the wholesaler, has to pretend like act like they're the realtor and, find the buyer and sell the deal. Right. So we see it kind of often to where like it's an inexperienced wholesaler, knows the process, but just doesn't give the seller the expectations of what they're signing. And next thing you know, like one of our clients or our internal business, we get a lead of a seller who's like, I'm selling my house, blah, blah, blah. And we look and, it's already listed. And they say, no, it's not. And they're like, well, hey, how did it get here? And then they're like, oh, well, I had a buyer, but they backed out. And we're like, well, your property's still listed on the market. And they go through this whole thing of like, how did that even happen? Next thing you know, like they found the wholesaler had that clause in the contract that they can list it. And it really just messes everything up, because the seller, they still want to get the price that they want, but the price they want is what it's listed at on the market, and no one's buying it. So how are we going to be able to make something work?
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, not something I've dealt with. But I definitely could see how that, that can cause a lot of problems. I'm trying to think if there's anything similar. I've had stuff where we've listed significantly higher than I knew it was going to go for, and we ended up just renting it out. But nothing quite like that.
There's a big news story of it in Phoenix of people just like door knocking and getting houses under contract, door knocking by just very kind of like
unethical
practices, unethical practices, people not knowing what they're signing. Next thing they know, their house is listed on the market for sale by owner, but it's actually,
that's crazy. I'll have to look into that.
But you basically get power of attorney over the house, get them to sign it, basically list it, and take your commission off of whatever it goes for. But you can put the price at whatever you want. There was a big class action lawsuit where the DA of Maricopa Valley in Arizona was really it was like a big news story there. It was happening a lot, but it's coming up more and more. And it can be a strategy that can help people if you do it the right way, if you have a good heart about it. Like you're an investor,
you're honest about it, for sure.
And you're telling them like, hey, if you want to get a little bit more money, if you need a little bit more money, I can still work with you. We can do it this way, right? Which this is the price you can get for that, right? And then it's the investor taking that commission instead of maybe an assignment fee or whatever it might be. And then, but yeah, it's going to come up a lot more. It's kind of like circumventing the actual like getting your license process to where like anybody, Tom, Dick, or Harry can list a house on the MLS and for someone, doing this process. But what do you think, as we wrap up always like this, like, what do you think about the industry going forward? Where do you see it going? There's a lot of talk about, what is it, like 50-year mortgages they might introduce, and what that would do to the industry, and where do you think kind of like those types of conversations are going to go?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that. We obviously have to see it like drawn out and how serious they are about that. I mean, I think obviously that ends up happening. Values are going to continue to go up. They're already still, even here, they're still going up. As far as like where I see there's a lot of AI being implemented. So I think that's kind of my biggest, not concern, just I think that's going to be a major shakeup. There's a lot you can do on your own as either the seller or the buyer, if you're really comfortable with how to use AI. So I think you're going to see a lot more for sale by owners with platforms like Zillow pretty much offering everything you need on that. I have a listing coming up next week in Claremont, and there's one of my client friends just said that we used to be able to publish open houses from MLS, and it would be like the first thing that shows. Now, unless you're one of Zillow's partners, I forget what the exact name is, but it's some new program that they've rolled out where they're paying to basically I think it's called Showcase. And if you're not a Zillow Showcase partner, it basically like throttles your listing to the bottom, because they're not required to push yours above what some of the people are paying. And so if you're, a home seller, you could just pay for that type of service. So there's a lot, I think, with that side of it, that there's just gonna be a shakeup. It's hard to say until we get there, but I think it's stuff that, you can predict what's going to happen if rates fall or, certain things happen within the world. But when you start really changing things up, it's hard to say what can happen.
We've gotten that a lot. We've talked the last couple of calls. Well, people have been like, it's impossible to predict anything right now, just because we have a president who just, depending on what he tweets out in the middle of the night, can change the market dramatically, right? And that's
absolutely
factor that really hasn't existed in the past. Normally it's been those like, it's not that dramatic of of swings that can happen by just a social media message, unless it was like the world is shut down because of COVID, right? Like that message shook up the world, but you have like these mini shakeups that can happen and swing the stock market, swing the cost of oil, swing the cost of gold by just statements that can be put out, and it happens so regularly that it's really impossible to say. But that's the kind of the answer we've been getting a lot. But do you have a personal prediction, at least as far as like Central Florida goes? Where do you see Central Florida over the next like 5-10 years as far as the real estate market here?
Well, Central Florida is growing so quickly. It's continuing to grow. I know they're the I-4 expansion is finally getting down to like the theme park area, and you're seeing a lot more new home construction down there, and like Horizon West and Claremont, Winter Garden, like all of that.
North too, like Daytona, like the land, and
absolutely,
even like
absolutely.
Some of those areas are becoming those are going to be part of Orlando eventually. Like
I
Sanford
think it'll be similar to
part of Orlando.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be similar to LA, where it's like it's just all connected, all the way to the beach. I definitely think that, but I think also, with all that change, it's hard to say what's going to happen with values because they are building a lot. I think your core areas are going to continue to get more expensive, like your, Maitland, Winter Park, Orlando itself, that type of stuff, Dr. Phillips, all the stuff that's been there, for the last 50, 60 years. Those values are going to rise. But a lot of the stuff on like the fringe areas, I think you're going to see some more affordability. Insurance, I think we'll have to go through another like 2 or 3 hurricane seasons. I think we got lucky this last one without, any major storms hitting the US. If that continues to happen, I think they're also trying to like reform the premiums. I heard that. So I think values are just going to continue. Before the last 10 years, it's gone up roughly like 10% each year. With those 3 COVID years, it was like 25% in value went up. But I think it's going to be the same thing. It's just going to keep growing.
Time will tell.
Bigger. Yeah, it's tough to say.
Where can people find you if someone wants to work with Blake Murphey in Central Florida because they want to buy or sell a home? What's the best way to find you?
Just on Facebook, just my name, Blake Murphey, Realtor. I'm on there. I have the domain, thecitybeautifulsells.com.
Nice.
So that's probably the easiest one to find me there. Instagram, same thing, Blake_Murphy. I believe. Let me double check that because I've changed it. Blake.Murphy, actually, on Instagram. So yeah, those are the three main places.
Hell yeah. Awesome.
Right
Craig,
on.
anything you want to say as we sign off?
Yeah, 2026 it's gonna be a killer year. Let's all go out there and crush it. It's gonna be good on investment and on residential and retail stuff. So this is an awesome call. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me.
Hell yeah. Appreciate all the viewers, and we do this for you guys. So if y'all need leads, get at us at LeadHouse365 on everything.
Craig, what do we know who we got up in a couple weeks coming? Do we have it teed up yet? Or are we still working on a guest?
That'll be, we will be out in Phoenix in 2 weeks.
Maybe 3 weeks.
That'll be the day. Yeah, that'll be the week we get back. We don't have a guest yet though, but if any of you watching do want to be a guest, on our show, just hit us up in the DMs and we can make that happen.
Absolutely. And hope everyone has a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next time.
All right, cool. Thanks, Blake.